began the active campaign for this park, little did I know 6 years ago what a tremendous uphill climb it would be. And now I stand before you 6 years later, and the park is a reality. Not only 6 years later, for me it's been 42 lectures later, 64 newspaper articles later, 430 photographs later, and 2,000 handwritten or hand-typed letters later. And I can truly say to all of you, this is the proudest moment of my life. We are seeing the realization of the great dream come true. Oh, this park will mean great things for Colorado. It will mean great things for the United States. There is nothing more inspiring than the connected chains of mountains within the Rocky Mountain National Park. And there is nothing more beautiful. And all of you who have worked together to see this dream come to fruition are to be congratulated. Of course, there are special people in my heart that I wish to acknowledge today. One, of course, is my dear friend F.O. Stanley. I believe he must be here among us somewhere in the crowd. Of course, if I have been the visible presence of the championing of this park idea, F.O. Stanley has been the invisible presence just as powerful. For he is a man of unceasing enthusiasm and encouragement. Why, a man who, when we realized just a few years ago that the elk had been hunted into extinction, F.O. Stanley came on board for the effort to reintroduce elk to these mountains here. Why, they were even hauled up to the mountains in his Stanley mountain wagons. Maybe some of you witnessed this great thing. Of course, I must recognize that we have a message of congratulations from President Woodrow Wilson and a message of congratulations from the Secretary of Interior, Franklin Lane, as well as, of course, I believe he is here somewhere today, the Assistant Secretary to the Interior, Stephen Mather. We also must thank James Rogers, who rallied the Colorado Mountain Club to get behind this great cause. I thank my recently deceased but very dear friend and mentor, John Muir, who in letters wrote to me and supported this idea of a national park in Colorado. John Muir, who enlisted the great help of his Sierra Club. We thank the great people of the women's clubs around the United States, in particular, Mary Bell King Sherman, who is the conservation chair of the General Federation of Women's Clubs and is rightfully earning her title as the National Park Lady. We thank Representative Edward Taylor for really nurturing this bill through Congress. And of course, we thank the great citizens of Grand Lake, Colorado, and surrounding Grand County. We thank the good citizens of Estes Park, Colorado, and their Estes Park Protective and Improvement Association. And we thank the good citizens of Larimer County as well. So what does this mean? This is the day, this is that great occasion when these wonderful hills and these matchless valleys are to become the playground of the world. What does it mean? I submit that it means an improvement in our character. I believe that it will bring a moral uplift to the country. I can only think that we may not have the span of time to fully appreciate what is happening with the creation of this national park. I have often wondered in my mind's eye if there were a possibility of bringing together all of the children of the world, the children of today and all the children who ever lived, to gather them together and tell them all the stories of humanity and civilization. Why, of course, they would marvel at the stories of our buildings, the structures we create, the things we do, our skyscrapers, our structures that give us shelter made with earthen materials. They would be astounded at our art and our poetry and our music, as well as the stories of the people who created those wonderful things that enrich our lives. We would tell them of great governments that were formed, and democracies, and economies, and currencies, and trade, and they would be astounded. But I submit that their eyes would come alight when we told them that there was a time when people gathered together and saw that there was a need to preserve their great treasures as national parks, not only for a year or 5 years, but forever, that these parks would be preserved. When they heard the stories that the wild plants and the magnificent animals within them would be saved, their eyes would come alight like no other story that could be told. Perhaps in 100 years, we might have the scope of history to better appreciate this national park. But maybe we will need 200 years, 500 years, 1,000 years may not be enough to fully have the scope of history to appreciate the magnificence of this great act. Lastly, I will leave you with a thought today. I have often imagined, wondered that could there perhaps be some expressive sign or suggestive quotation for when people enter the woods that would inspire them to remember, to linger in their minds the importance of the conservation of the wild plants and the animals in those forests. I would ask that each of us together imagine when we look to the woods and see the bended limbs as they enshrine the arched and leafy entrances to our woods, that we might look and see in those limbs words formed. And those words formed as we enter the forest would be health and hope to all who enter here. And that once all of us were gathered inside those woods, in the mellow light, in the peacefulness, we would listen in unison and hear the treetops whispering to us. And those treetops would say these words: "These are your gardens. These are your fountains of life. Kindly assist in keeping them." Congratulations to all of you on this day, on this very magnificent occasion.